Okay, Sharon, how are you today?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good.
Sharon, we've had a lot of success with your book. For me, I found that it's about the impact that your book is having on people. And that's why I've asked to have time with you to question you a little bit more about the background of the book.
Great.
So I want to ask you, first of all, what was the initial spark that inspired you to write the book?
Well, I've been leading retreats and giving talks about contemplative Christianity for a while now. And along the way, a few people suggested that I write a book, but I kept finding that I felt quite paralyzed at the thought. So I just couldn't quite get over that hump, But then when I was doing the Living School course, at the end of that course, they suggest that one does a project where you integrate your learning and express it in some way as an offering to the world. And that gave me the impetus that I needed to get going on the book. It also gave me clear time frames. And fortunately, in that time, my consultancy work had actually just naturally dried up for a few months. So it was perfect timing. And so it kind of flowed out of that.
And then why did you choose your particular subject of contemplative life to write about? Why did you choose that?
Yeah, for me, so much of what I've been learning in my spiritual journey is that God or the sacred are not separate from everyday life, but that in fact our lives are our greatest teachers. If we can learn to hear the Spirit and participate with the transformative power of God working through us and in us, through what is. And so for me, as a science teacher, the sort of image that comes to mind is that life as it is like the practical, where we've learned so much theory about God and spirituality and scripture and that kind of thing. And so life is our learning space. And so for me, contemplative learning means learning to recognize that life as it is the divine dance. And that what we need to learn is to dance in step with our divine dance partner, following God's wild, free, unpredictable rhythm with abandon. And so that's, for me, is what contemplative living is about.
Another quick question in light of what you've just said. Do you feel that light-free dance with God most days, or what happens on the days you're not feeling like that? That's just an extra to what you've just said.
Yeah. It depends on where my attention is. Sometimes if I'm caught up in my mind and my mind's narrative about what's happening and trying to sort of fix or solve my life or other people's lives, as so often the case is, or worrying about the future, whatever, then I get stuck. Then I don't feel like I flow freely with that dance. But when I remember to just let go of my own trying to make life work the way I think it should, which is always the worst way of living, because our way of living, our ideas about how life should be are just too small, so confined. And when I remember to let go and move into the quieter place within that knows how to dance already, there's a part of me that knows how to dance with the dance, but I forget that and I get caught up in the controller, and so when I learn to let go and fall into grace again, the dance just starts to unfold, and I can start to flow with it. And so it's about, for me, it's about kind of recognizing when I'm stuck and congealed, and then remembering to find that quiet place within that is able to flow freely with the divine dance partner. Yeah.
That's a lovely answer, Sharon. What did you anticipate your book would do for your reader?
I think my hope was that it would encourage people to venture deeper in their own spiritual journeys, and maybe to share a few tools that I've learned along the way that have helped me in my own journey, and hoping that people will hear that invitation of deep calls to deep, and follow that call to come deeper. You know, it's such an important call for each of us to hear in our own lives, and to learn to surrender more freely to the transformative work of the Spirit in and through our lives. And my hope is also that people will experience God firsthand for themselves and discover their own unique, authentic journey, rather than just receiving information about relating to God through somebody else's experience. So to discover that real kind of authentic inner journey for themselves and their own rootedness in God, and be able to draw on that and become, you know, sources of living water themselves. I mean, that for me is a wild hope, but it's a hope.
My experience with myself and with others who've read your book, that is definitely happening with many people. Yeah,
it's wonderful.
So what did writing the book do for you?
Yeah, for me, at the time, it was up and down. And it was an exercise in learning to recognize and let go of the voices of self-doubt and second-guessing that plagued my mind and emotions. But then also the other voices of kind of self-importance and self-aggrandizement, when, you know, which would come up when I kind of imagined, well, what if this book is a success, you know, and then one goes sort of tripping down that whole lane. And so it was a very helpful exercise for me in learning to practice the very thing I was writing about, of letting go of all the kind of mind scenarios and this virtual reality that the mind kind of oppresses us with, and learning to surrender to God's whatever, you know, whatever comes from it. And then longer term, what it's done is that it's connected me with so many beautiful people like yourself. We were connected before, but it's connected us more deeply. But with a wide range of people who are creatively exploring a deeper contemplative journey. And this has grown in me the sense of a beautiful, wide, interconnected community of people who are awakening in fresh and exciting ways, and who are touching the world with God's love in new ways, in unboundaried ways. And for me, it's just kind of confirmed that the Spirit is doing a new thing. She's blowing where she wills. And I find it incredibly exciting to see and hear how this is happening outside of the narrow structures and confines of organizations, personality cults, and any form of ego management. It's kind of, for me, just opened my eyes even more to see this wonderful work that the Spirit is doing, that's free and beautifully democratic. Everybody's invited, and it's really happening. It's lifting off. So that's been very exciting for me.
I see that, and I am so delighted that I'm part of this as well. And I love your honesty when you say that when you dream about the success of the book and then you get back to reality. I love that honesty. And you know, I'm finding, knowing you like I do, the more people are getting to know about you, the more humble I see you become. That's just an observation. Yeah.
Thank you. Now I'm instantly
So
not
while
humble
you're
about
this-
being humble.
I love it when you have a laugh about things, Sharon, and especially when you're talking about spiritual things, when you giggle, because that giggle of yours is having a little humorous look at our humanity, how crazy
Exactly.
we are.
Yeah, and that for me is such an important thing, is learning to hold our humanity lightly, because we are ego beings that like to kind of assert our self-importance or get down on ourselves. And the more lightly we learn to live with that, the more we are free agents to be able to move with the spirit. And so yeah, it's lovely to be able to be humble and light and silly and free.
It is, isn't it?
Mm.